was yet another date, or greater importance to her than those, that of her own death, a day which lay sly and unseen, and among all other days of the year, giving no sign or sound.
What if you could have a career where the opportunities are as vast as our nation, where it's not about mission statements, but a shared mission? At U.S. Customs and Border Protection, we go beyond to protect more than borders. From ship to shore, air to ground, cities to local communities, CBP agents and officers are keeping people safe. Join U.S. Customs and Border Protection and go beyond for something far greater than yourself. Learn more at cbp.gov/careers.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Yeah, so that is a quote from Thomas Hardy's 1991 novel, and the author of, obviously, the book we're doing today, One Day, David Nicholls, the author wrote that the quote by Thomas Hardy, "There it is again, that ordinary day that turns out not to be ordinary at all." As in, like...
Yeah, one day.
One day.
So, right off the bat, thank you so much for making us do this episode when I'm already a hormonal sobbing mess.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. This one kind of bites you in the butt of...
pretty hardcore.
Of, like, let me tell this beautiful story of these two people that meet and grow this friendship and fall in love, and it's wonderful, and then...
We're just going to yank it all away from you.
Rip your heart. Like, literally, like, cut your chest open, rip your heart out, and stomp on it.
So we're going to talk about One Day, the book, One Day, the Netflix television show that just came out, and also One Day, the Anne Hathaway movie with Jim Sturgess.
Yes.
But the drink that we're drinking today is called a proper drink. So if you watch the Netflix show, and it's also in the book, our main boy, Dexter, grew up with a mom who taught him how to make a very dry, extra cold martini when he said he was about 9 years old.
Yeah.
You don't really get it. You get some mentions in the movie, but you don't really get it hardcore until you're in the show or read the book.
Yeah.
And it's that scene where Dexter and Emma are in that fancy bar, and she's so excited to see him, and she tries to order a gin and tonic, and he says, "No, you need to order a proper drink. This isn't a pub. 2 extra dry martinis." And it's just like, she looks at him like, what a freaking douche you are.
Yeah.
And then he says, the proper way to do it, see, the trick is you have to get the martini glass extra cold, and you have to have the gin in the freezer, and like an extra cold dry martini with a twist. So that's what we're drinking today.
Love it.
So cheers.
Cheers.
But that part just showed, I don't know, that if you didn't read the book, but watched the Netflix show, you basically read the book.
Also, yeah, guys, like we kind of say this at the beginning of most of our episodes, but there's a ton of spoilers in here. So,
I mean,
just FYI.
Everything we're talking about is a giant spoiler.
Yeah.
And this was a recommendation you told me to watch it forever ago, thinking I had read the book.
Yes.
And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny, like, I did not realize what I was watching. I had read this book. So this book was written in 2009. So I must have, like, come across this book, read it, but didn't finish reading it.
Okay.
Like I started reading it, but
How could you not finish this book?
I know. It must have been like maybe I brought it with me to the beach. Like I don't remember when I started reading it, but I had started reading it. I just didn't finish reading it. And one night I was home and I was bored and I turned on Netflix and it was right after they had released the show. And I started watching it and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. This is so familiar. Like couldn't place it. Watched the entire show in one sitting, which I don't recommend.
I did the same thing.
Or I do.
In one day.
Yeah. And I was so excited by it that I literally sent out like a group text to multiple people on my like, you have to watch this.
You were like, I don't know what you're doing right now,
Yep.
but you have to watch this.
Yes. Did I do that to you then?
Oh, God,
I
yes.
also did it to my sister-in-law. I was like, I don't know what you're doing right now, but stop whatever it is and watch this. And she did. And then
She was like, what the hell, Dayelle?
and then
No trigger warning on
no,
this?
none. But also in my defense, I hadn't gotten to the part that we all know is coming.
Okay.
And then I got to that part and I was like, oh my God, then sent another text and said, abort, do not watch this, especially if you're by yourself or feeling emotional or any kind of anything, because I am bawling. I was sitting on the couch sobbing because it hit so hard. It came out of nowhere and it just was like my heart was ripped from the inside of my chest.
Now, okay, so now I've read the book, but this is the order I did it in. I watched the Netflix show.
Yes.
I read the book.
Yes.
And then I watched the Anne Hathaway, Jim Sturgess movie. And I will just say this. I will die on the hill. I love Anne Hathaway and I love Jim Sturgess. Across the universe, top 3 favorite movies of all time for me. I'm a very big Beatles fan. I love Jim Sturgess.
Oh, he's in Across the Universe.
Yeah. And I love Anne Hathaway. And you know what? This is a little bit of a sidebar, but not really. Do you know what this proved to me? Hardly ever are we watching movies in the 80s being like, wow, what a hot woman in the 80s.
Yeah.
Anne Hathaway is the most timeless beauty. She has now played every gosh darn generation.
She doesn't age.
Like, she looks perfect dressed in the 80s, in the 90s, when nobody looked good.
She's more beautiful today than she was years ago, but also she looks the same.
And she's just such a genuinely cool person. I don't know. I just love her.
Also incredibly talented. This
So
girl
damn good.
can play characters.
So damn good.
Like, she becomes the character. Like, how can you go from, like, Princess Diaries
I don't know.
to One Day?
Wait, is this the Anne Hathaway
To-
Stan account? Because
think
we
it
just
might
did Princess Diaries.
Devil Wears Prada. I mean, like, there's so... Also, that's a book.
Well, we have to do that one.
We have to keep
Season
it up.
2, what's up?
Anne Hathaway. But and to kind of like, I thought I had seen the movie. And then when I watched it for this episode, I realized that I had not seen the movie.
Okay.
So I had mixed feelings. I think they did a good job. But I think because I clearly was so in love with how Netflix did the show.
Agreed. And
it's the book.
it's the book. So it's very similar to me when we did Jane Eyre and the one BBC show. It's the book.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So they do the best they can with 2 hours or an hour
Of
and
course.
45 minutes, whatever it is.
Of course.
But the order to do this in, I think to appreciate each one for what it is, movie first, then read the book, then the Netflix show.
Yeah.
Because the movie is going to make you say, wow, what a beautiful love story.
Yeah.
I want more of this.
Yeah,
But if you read the book and then watched the movie, you'd be like, oh my God, they missed so much.
This is going to be not a popular opinion, but I would almost say scratch the movie.
Really? You know, there are aspects of the movie that I did like, though.
Yeah.
Different aspects.
I think because in my mindset, I loved the book so much that I feel like I didn't need the movie.
I read the book in like 6 hours.
Yeah.
Not even.
And I think like the book is so incredibly good. It's so well written. And if you watch the show, it's literally like as if you're rereading it, but through their eyes.
I think that's why I'm saying that. Because like if you watch the movie first, you can appreciate the movie for just the movie. But to me, the movie is a complete separate entity than the book and the show.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So
fair.
like The movie to me is like,
If you went in blindly,
Yeah.
especially.
yeah, knowing nothing.
Yeah.
But then once you read the book and watch the show,
Yeah.
like if you were to read the book before the movie, you'd be so upset.
Fair.
You'd be devastated.
Right. Well, and I think you go into it so differently, right? So when I started watching the show, I was just like, oh, this is such a sweet love story. Again, still not pinpointing the fact that I had started reading the book eons ago, but just forgot about it. And then you just follow this beautiful story, and kind of tragic and kind of lonely, and also just it's real. It really like shows the well, I guess the whole concept of this is that this movie or book or show takes place over a 20-year span, and it starts on July 15th.
Yeah.
And it's
1988 it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it every year for 20 years it follows these two characters' stories. And what's really funny is in the book they talk about the day being the Swiftums.
The day that if it rains on that day, it's going to rain the whole summer.
Yeah. So, but what's funny?
Smittum's Day, Swickham's Day.
So it's Swithins, not to be confused with Swifties Day, which
it's every day to me.
Kept coming up when I was like,
it's every
"What
day to
is
me."
this?" But it's actually It's actually based on folklore.
Yeah.
So it's like from like the Scottish, English, wherever it originated. I don't know, but if it rains on Saint Swithin's Day, it will rain for 40 days. But if it is fair, then 40 days of fair weather will follow.
Yeah.
Which I was like, that's so
That's
cute.
like the Scottish version of our Groundhog's Day.
Yes, fair.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, that's fair. But this is kind of crazy. The movie.
Oh, wait, let me get the timeline right. So,
Okay.
book is 2009.
Yes.
Movie's 2011.
Yes.
Show is 2024, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. And the movie, I found out, which
this is the fun fact. I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by it because I'll just spit it out. The movie's screenplay was written by the author.
Really?
Yeah, which is kind of surprising, but also I realized while watching the movie, there are a ton of quote grabs. So like, I don't know if that's the right phrase, but like literally like word for word quotes from the book.
Page to book, yeah.
In the movie. Wow. And I was like, that's really interesting. Like, oh, they must have grabbed. No, the author wrote the screenplay for the movie.
Well, the quote that you opened the show with.
Yes.
Opened this episode with.
Yes.
Emma is laying in Dexter's Christmas house, which oddly enough, about everything that happened in their house during Christmas, but you don't see it till the very last episode.
Yeah.
She gifts him this book and reads him that line. And she's like, do you get it? Do you get it?
Yeah.
Which is
it's
irony in the worst way.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's so many moments in this book that are that, just okay. Yep.
I didn't love the Sylvie in the movie, but I really did like, I think they kind of knocked it out of the park with Dexter's parents in both movie and book.
Yeah.
I mean, movie and show. Like both Patricia Clarkson is so good as his mom. Yeah. Like very hoity-toity, London rich woman.
Yeah.
But so loving. And like, but I had seen it after the show.
Yeah.
And the actress who plays his mother in the show, when she has cancer, is just
it's devastating.
I can't even think about it. Essie Davis is her name.
What's interesting about the casting, I don't know necessarily so much about the show's casting, but the movie's casting. So Anne Hathaway read the script for the movie and reached out to the director, and the director didn't want an American actress playing the part. He wanted it to be like a British actress. And so he didn't even want to take a meeting with Anne Hathaway. And she obviously got herself there. She was interviewed.
She's Anne Hathaway.
Or auditioned, not interviewed. And he didn't want to go with her. And then she went home, came up with a playlist that she had in her head that would describe the character, sent it to him. He listened to it and it was like, done, you're her.
And that's something else. I like, just shows you how incredible she is. We were just talking about her range. Like genius, first of all.
But you know what's funny is like when you think of characters and you put music to a character, that is such an incredible way to
and how intimate, right?
Exactly.
How intimate, yeah.
Like because in my mind, like you're putting yourself in that character. What would that character be listening to? What would they be feeling?
We do this all the time.
Exactly.
You and I. We
set the stage for when we're reading a book. Like there's a playlist depending on what book we're reading.
I'm constantly sending you things. You're constantly sending me things. Listen to this. If you're trying to work out, put on the Illyrian playlist.
And then even better, or I thought this was like, of course, that she did this. So she wanted the Dex guy. I didn't forget the actor's name. She wanted him as Dex. I was like, I love that because obviously when you watch the movie after you watch the show, there's a definite like you love the show version of Dex so much that seeing someone else play the character is hard to see, but he does an incredible job.
They have chemistry, like
it's beautiful,
palpable.
Yes,
but I will say, I mean, there are parts of the movie version that I really like. Like I like the scene when they're on holiday in Greece and they steal his clothes and Jim Sturgess goes like, and he's like so losing dramatic. His mind. And she's just like, oh my God. To me, that was very book Dex, right?
Yes.
But the show was so, I cannot speak high enough and I want to get their names right because they were just truly so incredible.
Oh, the actors. It's,
Amika Maud and Leo Woodall.
Yeah.
And they, just the way they looked at each other, the way that they would lick their lips, the way that they would just water their eyes at the perfect moment. Like it is a class act in acting.
100%.
Because even when he would say something, because it's a very will they, won't they.
Yes.
They're both in love with each other at different points in life and they can never, like their timelines are never matching up.
Yeah.
And the other is never really convinced that the other has the same feelings they do at the same time.
Right.
And there's so much give and pull, but there's moments where you're watching Dex say something and she's in the background. She's not even in the foreground and you watch her face fall just so gently. And you can tell that she's like just completely crestfallen. And same for him, like when he gets to Paris and she's like, oh, I've met someone and he tries to play it cool. Like movie Dexter in that moment. Loses his ever-loving shit, like from the get. Show Dexter is like trying to play it cool. And then when he's in the shower and she comes back.
Well, but he breaks down in the apartment.
Yeah.
And
cries his eyes out. Yeah.
That scene in the show, I think is one of those scenes that like, that ripped me apart because you see his emotion and you see that he's like it's always been you.
Yeah.
And I just was stupid and like didn't realize that it's always been you. And now that I can't have you is when I'm finally like, he's finally realizing like I lost her. Like I lost her. And then the moment when she walks back in the room.
And it's the same thing as when they were in Greece and she's watching him shower and she's just like looking at his butt. When they're in Greece and she's just like staring at him and then she like tries to open the beer and it like explodes everywhere and she like mops it up with a towel and then sprints out to the fucking patio. But it's the same thing as, and she's staring at him and then this is such a small but very romantic thing. And she's like holding her throat and she says in French the word tonsillitis. And he said, what? And she's like, it's French for the fake tonsillitis you have. I told Jean-Pierre I also have it. And it was just like, are you kidding?
It's just, it's everything. It's like just, I don't know. And I think this book does a really good job of the long stare, the long like pause.
The soft touches.
There's so much just want, but they never act on it. And it's just this constant, like even in the very beginning where they're in the bed, nothing happens, but the whole time he wants it.
Yeah.
And she's so nervous and like, oh my God, like this is happening, but I don't want to sleep with him because I'm just going to be another girl. Like there's so much around that but it's done so well. Like, that whole scene is such a vital part of the entire story because it shows their, like, the start of their relationship and how, like, that person, like, she becomes, in my mind at least, she becomes everything she wanted to become. Whereas Dex is so lost and so broken. And then when he finally realizes, like, he is enough, he is, like, he doesn't have to be this famous person. He doesn't have to, like, there's so much going on around him that's just causing him hurt. And, you know, he's letting down his parents, and his mom passes away, and he feels like he never could show her, like, all that he did, except he did. And he just never really, I think, like, internally, he never accepted that he was someone to be proud of and, like, someone to be wanted.
And they kind of flip-flopped, right? So, like, in the beginning, she's lost.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you should just become a teacher. Like, you could be a teacher.
Yeah.
But then she does that thing that he tells her to do, right? And then he's a star.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's made it and he's figured it out.
Yeah.
And then he loses it all. And she is now suddenly trash because she's a teacher. Why aren't you writing a book? Like, you're not doing. And like, for her, it's like, what the shit? Like, this is what you told me to do.
Right. I can't do anything.
I can't do anything right. And then she becomes the writer. And then he's lost. And I think that's my favorite version of them, is when they're finally together and he's like a nobody. And he's like thinking of starting his cafe and all this stuff. But like, she still loves him as a nobody.
Yes.
Where his ex-wife didn't.
Yeah. She's climbing that tree.
Great redemption arc for her, though, because
fair.
How beautiful it is to still love the father of your child when his world is crashing down around him. And they did a great job in both the movie and the show expressing that part in the book where he just, where does he go when he gets the shit kicked out of him and he's obliterated? But back to her, the only place in the world he can find love right now is like with his daughter and with his ex-wife. And she doesn't kick him out.
Although, I don't know if you picked up on this. And when I was watching the movie, I realized, and I was like, oh, wow, that breaks my heart so much.
The daughter finds him?
The daughter finds him, but when they're in the car riding and he has his hand, she moves the hand off of her. And it like pans over to his face and he's just like internally sobbing. Like, clearly, like, he has reached his lowest low. He lost the love of his life. Like, life doesn't make sense. And I think at that moment was the turning point where he like realized, like, okay, my life is not mine anymore. Yeah. I'm living for my daughter. And it's like,
God, I'm going to like start crying.
I was just literally
the scene with his dad when he says, is this going to be our annual thing every July 15th? And he says, no, I don't think so. And then his dad says, you just have to live like she's still here.
Yeah.
Says, I don't think I can do that. And he says,
what do you think I've been doing?
What do you think I've been doing for the past 10 years?
Rip it.
And he just looks at his dad and he's like, this is the only person in the entire world that knows how I feel right now.
Yeah.
My whole life, I've had nothing in common with this man. And now this man is my lifeline.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, I was like, his mom must be smiling down on them so hard right now.
I think there's also just that certain level of like, he wanted to have all this self-pity.
Yeah.
And like, well, I can't live. Like, come on. Like, the love of my life is gone. And then exactly what you said, he's sitting in front of or next to his dad and they're talking. And it very quickly comes to front that like, he completely understands what I'm going
more
through.
Than anyone.
And it's, you know, it's a beautiful moment between the two of them because I don't think they had a lot of bonding moments. I think his dad loves him very much, but I don't think he sees that.
That scene when he shows up to his parents' house, still tripping balls, so hungover.
Was it his mom's birthday, right?
I think it was just a day to spend with her. Okay. Like, she was really sick and
well, because he brings books though from Emma
as a gift. Yeah. So the mom's like totally pooped by the time he gets there, and you know, like he's trying to keep it together, but he's like so sick because he's withdrawing, and the father never says anything, and he falls asleep in his childhood bedroom, and then his dad takes his keys and drives him to the train station, and there's that moment where it's just like, it was so intense, but so beautiful at the same time when the father's like, if you ever show up to see your mother like that in that state again. I will not let you in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like loses it on his son and kicks him out of the car. And that's right after his mom, who's dying, like days away from her death, says to him,
yeah,
you're not a very nice person
Yeah.
right now. And I know that you're capable of being an incredible person,
yeah.
but right now you are not a nice person. And it was just so vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and so like,
It couldn't have been
what
easy for
great
her.
writing. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's another one like that when they go to dinner, when he meets up with Emma and it's been a
Mhm.
while and they're at the table and obviously he's like coked up and like
That's
free-
the fancy
spinning.
restaurant with
Exactly,
the
with the
martinis.
drinks.
Yeah.
And she, at the end of everything, you know, she goes and she runs out. She's
I
done.
know what line you're talking
And
about.
and he's just like, I don't get it. Like what? And she's just like, I don't like you.
Yeah,
right
I'll
now.
always. She like kisses him, and she's like, "I will always love you,
Yeah.
but I don't like you anymore."
And it's between the movie and the show, they do that scene so well. It's different. Both of them
Yeah.
are definitely different, but it's done so beautifully. I prefer the show scene. I think like because it is literally like you're reading the book. And it's stretched out a lot more, whereas in the movie it's a very quick. Everything is very quick in
Yes.
the movie, obviously, because you have a movie or you have a series. But the emotion behind it is just so real and so pure, and just like you can tell it kills her to have to walk away from
She's
him.
not walking away from her best friend. She's walking away from what she thinks is her forever.
Yes.
Like she's just patiently waiting for that, and like to be like, okay, I can let him go now.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Every day, we rise, challenging ourselves to work for what we believe in. At U.S. Border Patrol, protecting our borders is more than a job. It's a calling. Agents answer the call, working together to keep our country and communities safe. If you're ready for a new mission, join U.S. Border Patrol and go beyond. Learn more at cbp.gov/careers.
But one of my favorite characters is Tilly. She's like the best. Her best
Yeah.
friend Tilly.
Yeah.
Not movie Tilly. Movie Tilly is like this sad, crying girl who's obsessed with every boyfriend that she's talking to.
Yeah.
And like the scene where she's just like walking around the apartment and Tilly's in the kitchen on the phone and she's like, I know I'm needy, but if I can't call you, can I come see you?
Yeah.
Like you could tell she's clearly being broken up with.
She's also doesn't look at all at like the way she's described in the book, in the movie.
Oh, nothing like
She's
her.
like a blonde girl.
I know. But
and like Dex describes her in like literally the first couple of pages of, I think of,
Amber Grappy is the girl that's the woman they chose to do Tilly in the show. And she is hysterical. She is so good.
yeah.
And her husband,
She's
Graham.
the one that's in the show?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And her husband, the guy who plays Graham, just the way that they wrote the two of them. And another thing that I noticed in the movie is you don't get that Callum Dexter relationship in the movie. They glossed over it so quickly that you don't get as much betrayal
Yeah.
as you do in
not
the
at all.
show.
You don't feel it.
You're just like, oh, okay, it's a guy they knew from college. And so
I think because also going into watching the movie after I read the book, like I know the storyline.
Exactly.
So like
Yeah.
I'm watching it and understanding
Yeah.
it. But I think if you went into that blindly, like we had said, like just watch the movie blindly, you're not going to get the deepness of those characters and why it hurt him so much. Like you're not getting the depth of each of those characters.
Yeah.
And especially like in the fact that like this girl who, you know, now has a baby with, he's married to, and he's a disappointment and all this stuff. But then like his friend is the one that his wife ends up with.
Who gives him a job. And that scene in the show when they're having that affair and he thinks that she's at what they call a hen do, which is basically a bachelorette party. And he thinks she's at a bachelorette party and he hangs up. She calls him. And then the douchebag Callum's like, I gave him a job. What more did you want me to do? Is that not enough?
Yeah.
What a bag of shit.
Yeah, because he thinks he's all that now. He makes money. I mean, and fair. He stays true to that character.
He does. And I love when they break up and she's just like, that was a bad call on my part.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, it was. But also, you're going to keep showing up for your ex-husband, and that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. For their daughter.
Well, and I think, like, you see that she realizes that, like, despite her mistakes in that relationship, he was a good guy. He was messed up. He wasn't the guy for her.
Yeah.
But he's actually a really good guy, and he's a really good father.
Eleanor Tomlinson is who plays Sylvie in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And she's
great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
When they're at that wedding, when they're at Tilly's wedding, and she said after the speech, and she's like, she seems fantastic. Introduce us immediately.
Yes.
And I was like, what a confident
that felt so
woman.
Real.
Yeah,
that felt
so real.
Like if you were at a wedding with your fiance and there's this
female
girl,
best friend that he's been talking about for a decade that you've never met is like there, I would be like, yeah, I can see it. She's freaking awesome. She's going to be my new best friend and you're going to be obsolete.
Exactly. It's a very cute moment. I think that was also a scene where, like, when they go into the garden.
Oh, the maze. And also something that I envy, and I really, it's a testament to David Nicholls' writing, is like the way that he's able to write vulnerability in a friendship. You have to be so close to someone to say, I'm so happy for you, but also I just found you and now I know that I've lost you again.
Yeah. You know what I found?
That's beautiful.
I found really interesting is when I was reading about the story and the author, I found it curious that the point of the story wasn't necessarily the love story.
Mm-hmm.
He said that he wrote a story about loneliness. Oh. And I was like, when you take the love story out of it.
It is a story about loneliness.
And like he talked about other things too, but a main plot of his story was loneliness. And I'm like, that's such an incredible, because like we all feel loneliness and like we all go through those phases in life where we're like, what are we doing? Like we're just spiraling and like, where are we going?
Welcome to my world.
Like life is just chaos. And I think like he does a really well job. And I also love the fact that it takes place on the same day over this course of it, you know.
It's so wonderful.
Until
it's not.
Well, fair.
Until it's not.
And I think too, we could jump into that topic, is the way, obviously.
Wait, before we get really sad and start crying, I just want to say, in both the show and the movie, the way they cast Ian, perfection.
Yes.
I prefer Johnny Weldon, who is show Ian.
Okay.
He's such a nerd. And he's short and he's weaselly. And like movie Ian just felt a little greasy.
He's like
felt a little greasy.
Also, he felt more attractive than he should be.
Yeah, I thought show Ian though was like, that looks like a guy trying to be a stand-up comedian.
He's a nerd.
He's a nerd.
But the movie version of him, I felt like he could be attractive.
He could have been really hot if he got a haircut.
He was kind of like a bigger guy too.
Yeah.
Like not like chunky, like
but tall,
like masculine, muscular.
But
masculine.
Just that scene where the two of them break up, and he's sitting on the floor, and they're like joking with each other. Is so
it's great,
beautiful. And I mean, like, I know that you're not the person I should be talking to about this, but like, very rarely do breakups go like that. Like,
fair.
You are in love with the love of your life. Like, you hit the jackpot, so you didn't have to go through the bajillion people that I did. But very rarely are breakups going that way.
They're not good. They're not
and
good.
When they do go that way and you do like salvage a friendship kind of afterwards, you're never really loved. Like,
right.
It was more of a friendship to begin with.
Fair.
But that, just Ian was just like such a funny little chicken nugget. I just loved him.
I feel bad saying this, but I thought it, so I'm going to say it. He felt like a placeholder, though. I think that's
what he was supposed to be.
You know, I think, like, of course, I think Emma him.
You knew she didn't love him from that first date.
Yes.
But it was just like, finally, somebody is lusting after me. Yeah. Somebody cares about me more than I care about them.
But you know, what's funny is I don't even know that she cared that there was like the lust was there. It almost felt like it was just comfort. Well, when he says a warm body.
Yeah. And when he says to her at the dinner bookend show, when he says that I never liked him because I always thought he took advantage of you.
That's
that
hard
you
truth.
See her eyes being like, oh my God.
You're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
And then he says he thinks she's the bollocks. And she's just like, oh, that's it. I'm in. I'm in. So,
yeah.
But there's a definite like, I like the way he came back around. And it's different, obviously, in movie, book, show.
Yeah.
But the anniversary of her death. And then there's that, you know, in the show, they all get together and they have that very awkward hour in his new flat.
Yeah.
And Ian like talks to him in the garden. And then you've got movie Ian who comes while he's working at the cat. It's like a weird thing that they have.
Yeah.
But both stories are really beautiful that like, I never liked you, but you made her happy.
Yeah.
So happy. Like you loving her made her so happy.
Just like,
what, like a selfless.
It's a beautiful moment. It's a beautiful moment. And I also, you know, as we're kind of like going towards the end of the book and the show and stuff.
Great.
I loved the way they wrapped it up in.
I'm nervous to what you're going to say right now.
I love the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the way they wrapped it up in the movie. It felt less drug out, and it felt like closure, whereas in the book and in the TV show, it is just as beautiful, but it felt maybe longer than it needed to be. You're like so heartbroken for him, right? And like obviously she's not coming back, but in the show, there's that scene where he's sitting in the room and she's sitting next to him. Obviously she's not there.
And he's got his head on her shoulder.
And like that's such a beautiful moment, but it's also like obviously that's not really happening. It's in his head. I loved the way that they go back to that first day when he's supposed to be like meeting his parents, and he's like, you know what, I have time, let's go hike this mountain. They go and hike the mountain, and then they still have time, and he's like, do you want to come back to my flat? And
my parents aren't going to be there,
of course. Like they're gonna, you know, finish what they didn't finish the night before.
And did you notice that when she says I'll race you to the bottom in the show, I mean, in the book, in the movie, she says, I'll race you to the bottom, because now she's racing him to go get laid. Like, I'm going to race you to the bottom because then we're going to go run to the flat. But that's the scene that they took when they were in the beach in Greece when she says, I'll race you to the ocean. And it's just like that cute little like moment that they had. I love that they just were like, we didn't use it yet, so let's plug it here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really cute.
That's very true. I didn't think about that. But then like, so
it's so playful.
You get to that, and then it in the movie it ends with them kissing goodbye, and that's it. And I liked the way that wrapped up. I think in the show they still do all of that, but I think it's a much longer and you get that scene where he's sitting next to her and like that whole thing where it's like, you know, and obviously I also really liked in the movie where he like goes up with his daughter and they're sitting that's
that was
a really
beautiful.
sweet, and that also happens in the show. It's just done a little bit differently, and I liked how they wrapped it where they're like, you know, he's going off to, you know, go meet with his parents or whatever, and he's kissing her goodbye, and then that's it. It's over.
This is very graphic. I apologize if you haven't watched anything or read anything. Just like don't listen to this.
Don't do it.
You shouldn't have listened to this to begin with. But because of the order I did this in.
Yes.
Show, book, movie. Okay. Show, when she gets hit by the car, I don't know what's coming. I'm hysterical.
Yeah.
Right?
Fair.
Book, I'm prepared.
You like know,
I'm still gonna
but you're
cry.
still bracing yourself.
Right?
Yes.
Movie?
Oh,
Fucking jump scare. That truck decimates her.
It was the like trolley bus,
And her bike is underneath it?
and her body's just like.
It's like, what in the
Holy, what's happening?
Shyamalan are we watching right
yes,
now?
yes,
It
fair.
was like I jumped up. First of all, I was dog sitting your sister. I was watching it on my phone, and I like leapt up in the air, scared the crap out of the poor little baby. She was sleeping on my lap, but her sister's a dog, guys.
She's a golden doodle.
She's so cute. And I'm like, it terrified me. And then she just is like very disgustingly dead.
Yes.
In the show, she's got that moment where she's dying and she's like, but she's still alive and her eyes are open. And then she goes back to her being a little girl on the swing set and like her parents are there. So what a way to go. You know, what a beautiful last memory.
Yes.
Not for Anne Hathaway.
Nope.
You
She a
are
dead.
flatted.
She just riding her little bike and then all of a sudden go.
It was a jump scare.
It was bad.
It was so bad.
It was bad.
For people who watched that first. And that was my recommendation earlier. So
I think
maybe I take it back.
I think what they get you on too is the way that whole scene plays out. It goes from her, because like once you get past the going swimming to clear my head kind of thing, you know it's coming. You know it's coming. I mean, fair, if you haven't read the book, you don't know it's coming. But you know that this is coming if you've read the book. And so going into the movie, you're kind of like, oh, this is the scene. She's on her bike. And then there's like the motorcycle that goes by and you're like, are they going to use the motor? Nope. Okay. And then the car zooms by and you're like, oh, no. Okay. Doesn't. And then you're like, oh, she's okay. Nothing can hit her from this part of the road because all the cars are going.
It was terrifying.
And then she turns down that little side.
In the little alley.
I'm like, oh no. Oh no. Oh no. And
Just
then right as
horrendous.
she's getting to the intersection coming out from behind you're like, oh, she's dead.
I mean, it is.
That's it.
Bananas.
Yep.
And
she's done.
yeah. So what the reason I bring this up now is Mbika, she turned this role down originally for this show.
Fair.
She turned it down. And
they wanted to make this in like 2020, I think.
Holy Santa Claus
Yeah.
shit. And I did read what I think is beautiful and what we got on screen was the auditions were completely colorblind. They said all ethnicities for all roles.
I love
that
her
because
casting.
are you kidding? She is, first of all,
Loved it.
stunning. Stunning.
I think the only thing that I found interesting is, well, actually, there's two things. One, in the book, she's described as red. She has red hair.
Yeah.
That's the only
Which Sylvie
thing.
ends up having in the show.
Fair. But in the movie, both Anne Hathaway and, what's his name?
Oh, Jim Sturgess?
Yeah, that one. They wore wigs the whole time.
Are you kidding me?
The only time they didn't wear a wig was the skinny dipping scene. That was the only time neither of them were wearing wigs. Did you know that? I had no idea. I thought that was their real hair.
Why?
So fantastic wigs. Fantastic. The entire movie.
First of all, their head must have been so sweaty.
But also Anne's
Hair
hair
looks
is
just like that.
fantastic. So I didn't understand why.
That's weird. Maybe because they wanted it to look really shitty and her hair is gorgeous.
I don't know. But yep, both of them.
Also, do you know who played Dexter? What show he's also from? I kind of love it. He's in The White Lotus.
Yes, I did see that.
And he's the one that, gets our poor girl, Jennifer Coolidge's assistant, to fall in love with him. And then he turns out to be a big poopy head. One of my little facty facts I have here is because he was filming, he auditioned for the role while he was filming White Lotus.
Yeah.
And then as we just talked about, there was like a big scheduling conflict.
Okay.
And they had no time to really have any usually roles like this, I guess they spend a lot of time together to build their chemistry.
Yeah.
He said they went for one gin and tonic before they started filming.
Wow.
And then they had to film.
Well, but they had natural chemistry. They were incredible. I loved the chemistry.
Yeah.
Like, you would have assumed that they knew each other. Like, this was they're incredible.
This is like for us, you and I, more than anything.
Yes.
David Nicholls said that the one key difference between the TV show and his original book is there's way more sex in the show than there is in the novel. And he's like, I tend to fade to black. And Taylor, the woman who wrote the show, she did not want to fade to black because she thought it would really like help build the chemistry and the sexual tension, which it does.
It does. I mean, we eat that stuff up.
Yeah. So he's like, I understand that editorial decisions had to be made, which is very weird for him to see it like, I never actually wrote that.
But also that would make sense for the movie because there isn't in the movie.
And they filmed the last episode for the show in the very beginning of the series because that's when the kids are supposed to be young.
Yeah.
Like they're supposed to, like the hair is all different or whatever.
Right.
Costumes, all that kind of stuff. So they filmed the last episode the first day and they said they were really happy they got that out of the way because it was so emotionally charged by the end of it that like,
oh my gosh,
like,
can you imagine?
I don't think that we would have been sobbing the whole time.
No. Yeah. Fair. It's yes. Because it takes you for a ride. I do want to say though that one thing I loved about the movie, and Ambika said that she had Anne Hathaway in her head the whole time. And one of the biggest reasons that this movie didn't do very well, it didn't do poorly. It did like 58 million at the box office, but is her accent was really bad. It was really bad.
Really bad.
Yeah.
So they sent Ambika to a dialect coach to make sure that her accent was like spot freaking on.
I mean, that's smart. Yes, that was the one thing that drove me crazy the whole movie. Her accent.
Also, how old did you feel like when they were introducing cell phones?
I mean,
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm so embarrassed. And when he's like, I mean, they totally cut this out of the movie, but like the whole affair with the headmaster at the school and how he like gifts her the cell phone. He's like, it even has a little keyboard on it that you can write messages with.
Yes.
And I was just like, oh my God, he's handing her a Nokia brick phone.
Yeah.
And it's the way of the world.
Cringe. It's all right.
I mean, what's weird to me is like, is this a bestseller book? It says number one international bestseller.
Yeah, but international bestseller.
Because
is that their way of just being like, look at this great book?
I don't know because like usually I hear about books and I'm such a little hooker for reading popular books. Like if everyone really likes it, I want to read it because I don't want to miss out on anything. I have really bad FOMO.
Yeah.
But like, did I miss out on anything?
I think it's overlooked, to be fair. Maybe whoever was promoting it didn't do a great job. I think it just didn't necessarily get, again, because I don't think it was.
I'm checking its Goodreads score.
I don't know that it was put out as a love story either.
What?
I think that it was definitely more just a tale of two people.
It's a coming of age. It's a friendship story, but it's a love story. It's like the most romantic love story.
But I don't know that that's what the push was.
Okay, let's see what we've got here. Because when I read it, I would say this is a 3.5-star book. And I'm not like super, not that it's a bad book, but it's like a 3.5, maybe a low 4-star book. But like, I wasn't like, wow, that book. I don't need to read another one of these. 100%. And it did exactly what it needed to do, right? Right. But I will say I liked the book more, I think, because I saw the chemistry on the screen. Fair. From the show. Yeah, I get that. If I read it, his writing is good, but I don't think he could write how good their acting was.
His writing is very...
Well, it's written by a dude.
Yeah, that. There's really no sex in it. There's no smut, so there's
all right. Everything doesn't have to have smut.
Ding. He also really likes to quote famous authors.
Yeah, I mean the Charles Dickens quote that Emma uses in her thing is you imagine one day struck out of your life and think of how different, of course, that would have been. But like she uses the Charles Dickens quote in her speech at Tilly's wedding.
Yeah.
And then he's got the quote in the beginning of the book. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, the very beginning of the book, I'm just going to read it because it's actually really good. So it's a Charles Dickens, Great Expectations. And this was a memorable day to me, for it made great changes in me. But it is the same with any life. Imagine one selected day struck out of it and think how different its course would have been. Pause, you who read this, and think for a long moment of the long chain of iron or gold or thorns or flowers that would never have bound you, but for the formation of the first link on the memorable day.
And then she goes on to say to Tilly and Graham, like, I'm so glad you guys found your golden link, which is so beautiful. And I mean, yeah, he does. He's a little pompous in his writing, but it's enjoyable. And one thing that made me giggle, and I have it written down here, is in the movie, the premiere that he has to go to that Princess Di might be at is Jurassic Park. And in the show, it's Fatal Attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, it's Fatal Attraction, which is just like so funny to me that they take like 90s, like what's a big movie that Princess Diana would have been at the premiere of?
Yeah.
Easily Jurassic Park or Fatal Attraction.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
I love
that. Yeah. I love
so
it.
So cute.
So we've gotten to the part of the show where, now this is hard because I'm going to say something that I don't normally say. Dayelle,
I had a feeling.
Would you watch it or read it? Now let's both take the movie off the table.
Okay.
That's not part of the watch it part.
Yeah. I would have slashed that.
Yeah. The movie is a completely separate entity.
Yeah.
Watch it or read it. I'm going watch it.
I know.
I'm watching the show.
I mean, I'm going to have to say watch it. I think because of the
chemistry. It was
not only
the acting. It's just like perfection for me. Well, that's for me. That's what I would say.
Started reading this. I purchased.
You DNR'd it, as the book talker always said.
I purchased and started reading it.
Wait, I have a hilarious question to ask you.
It must have been after the movie came out because this book has the movie thing.
That's what I'm saying. I was just going to say that. Did you realize after the show that you're like, shit, I think I started reading this, and then go look through all of your books to see if you owned it and found
it? It was under my bed. It wasn't even on my bookshelf.
That is so funny.
And my bookmark was still in, like, it was like this far in the book.
Okay.
And so, like, clearly, like, I purchased this, and it was not even at a point where I was, like, devouring books. So it had to have been at a point where I was just like, oh, this looks like a cute book. I probably was at a bookstore and was like, I need to buy a book. This looks like a cute book. Bought the book. And then read a couple chapters and put it down and forgot about it. Completely forgot about it until the show on Netflix came up on my suggestions. And I was like, oh, this looks like a cute little love story. I'm going to watch this. And then I was bawling. So
I just want to say, so we're both going watch it for the show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that you're missing anything if you don't read the book and you watch the show.
No, and to be completely fair, like the show, even though the author was not the one that did the writing, the screenwriting, as opposed to the movie,
they work together.
There aren't any plot differences between the book and the show that changes anything.
Yeah, it doesn't change any storyline.
If it's something, it's very small, and it's like one of those things that, like, you know, if it was green or if it was blue kind of thing. There's no, like, there's nothing really different about the two versions.
I agree. And I will say that, you know, like I said, I read this in 6 hours. It was the kind of reading where you're reading really fast and like I'm kind of like skipping different chunks because I'm like, all right, this is not as good.
Some of the conversations are like, I don't
already know what happens. And so, all right, we're both saying watch it. And I am just going to close this with saying something to really get you going.
Yeah.
The actor that played Ian in the show has also played Peter Pan on the stage. So if you need to add another Peter Pan to your spank bank,
of course,
please add Ian.
I don't know how I feel about that, but
I saw the picture. I was like, should I send it to her? No. Save it for the record.
Save it for a rainy day.
All right, guys. Well, that was one day. Here's the thing. We're laughing. You won't be laughing after you watch it.
No, definitely have a box of tissues. And maybe also like put on like an episode of Gilmore Girls after you watch it.
Yeah, something to make you laugh.
That might help you feel better. Because
Absolutely.
You're going to need like a really big hug. And maybe some
Therapy?
chocolate.
Same.
Whatever you do, don't do it when it's that time of the month.
Which I did. Thank you so much. I do just want to point out, when I originally went to watch this a couple months ago, do you know what I chose to watch instead?
No.
Irish Wish with Lindsay Lohan.
Oh gosh. I started watching it and
I will accept zero slander on Lindsay Lohan. Thank you very much.
I fell asleep.
Okay. That's probably for the best.
And the movie played through. And then I realized I had no idea what happened. I don't know what happens. Does she get to marry the man that she wants to marry? The one that she falls over in the car?
Whatever story you think of is going to be better than the ending I sat through. So I made a mistake. I'm glad that I went back and watched it.
Great.
I just wish I would have done it at a different point in my cycle.
Fair. So on that note, watch it, guys.
Watch it. And also head over to our social medias.
Yeah. We really want to see some photos of cocktails. We're really missing.
Videos. We also want suggestions. I've actually gotten quite a few. Some we're never going to do.
Yeah.
But some we will.
Maybe we'll even, if we get a really good one, maybe we'll do a whole thing.
Yes. Let's do that. Okay. Yeah. We're going to work on that. All right, guys. See you next time.
Bye.
Our editor is Katie Yonner. Our associate producer is Grace Heerman. Our production coordinator is Nicole Vargas. And our senior content producer is Kyle Bosch. Our executive producer.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Every day, we rise, challenging ourselves to work for what we believe in. At U.S. Border Patrol, protecting our borders is more than a job. It's a calling. Agents answer the call, working together to keep our country and communities safe. If you're ready for a new mission, join U.S. Border Patrol and go beyond. Learn more at cbp.gov/careers.